What is going on YouTube? Lamont at large. Today we are in Blytheville, Arkansas. Today we're going to talk about a very heinous murder of June Larimore, who was killed by, we're going to talk about that. We're not sure who she was killed by. I'm going to tell you the facts of the case, and you're going to be the judge of what really happened on that night. We're going to go back to the evening of June 10th, 1990, Blytheville, Arkansas. And I'm imagining that day the weather was similar to the weather currently right now. Very hot, very humid. Newlywed couple Gregory and June Larimore, well, maybe they were still newlyweds. They had been married for about a year now. So they just get home to a wake. Now, it's about 9:30, 10 p.m. and they're settling in to their home over on East Walnut Avenue. So they're winding down, they're talking, chit-chatting, whatever the case might be, and then they go to sleep. The alarm goes off at 6 a.m. and Greg gets up and it's time to go to work. Now, Greg worked at a animal feed supply store not too far down the road from where they used to live. So normally he would get up around 6 a.m., get ready, eat breakfast, do whatever people do. And then he would leave by maybe 6:30, and he would take the 10 or 15 minute commute to his job. And normally, according to his boss, he'd be there 6:45. I guess you would call him a very punctual employee. So he gets to work. Now it's January 11th. He gets to work. He's there about 6:45 a.m. Just another day at work. And then around 11:20, 11:30, somewhere around there, his sister-in-law calls the job and asks to speak to Greg. He gets on the phone and she is hysterical. She says, "Hurry up and get home right away. June's been hurt." And she's hysterical. So Greg hangs up the phone and he sits straight to the house where he had just left his wife sleeping not even about 4 or 5 hours ago. He gets to the house located on East Walnut Avenue, and it is a crime scene like he's never seen before, like Blytheville has never seen before. There's police tape, there's it seems like every cop in Blytheville is at that house. And he goes, "What the hell's going on? What happened?" And, well, the police, they tell him, "Your wife is dead." Now, in that situation, people act differently. People take in emotional distress. People take in bad news that they just hear that their wives have been murdered. So he did what normal people would do. You're grief-stricken. You're saying, "What the hell is going on?" Now, normally, when somebody tells you that your wife has been murdered, you normally, I would guess, because I like to put myself in the position of others, I would say, "What the hell happened?" I would run into the house. But according to the police, the first thing that he did when he was told about his wife's murder, instead of asking what happened, he called his mom. Now, some of us are mama's boys. He could have been a mama's boy. I don't know. He calls his mom for some unknown reason. So by the time he got to the house, I don't know if June's body had already been removed, but in a small town like Blytheville, when something heinous like this happens, they're usually going to want a bigger city to take over, at least in terms of handling the autopsy. So her body's taken down south to Little Rock for an autopsy. Now, the autopsy's done. It takes about 3 hours. And let me tell you, I don't think I remember ever reading a story of a person being stabbed as many times as June Larimore was. She was stabbed 134 times, 35 times in the face alone. She was stabbed in her face, her arms, her neck, her chest, her abdomen, her legs. I mean, 134 times? Who does that? What kind of sick beast has the energy, the hatred, the vitriol to inflict that kind of damage on the body, the human body of another? So immediately, Greg is taken down to the Blythe Police Department for an interview. Now, of course, you know, cases like this, the husband, the boyfriend, a love interest, they're always going to be the one that the police suspect of committing this crime. Now, the police, the investigation that they did over on East Walnut determined that this was a crime that was committed with a lot of rage, a lot of hatred. This crime was not, this was not an attempted rape, because they did a test on the body of June and it was negative. It wasn't a robbery because she had a watch and a couple rings on her fingers. They were still there. Her purse contained whatever money it did. Nothing was missing. She was attacked in the bedroom, and when they found her body, she was completely nude other than her panties had been rolled down her hips, indicating that they believe that she had been drugged from the bedroom out into the living room. Whoever committed this crime, they washed up in the bathroom the murder weapon, which was basically a large kitchen knife, was cleaned and placed back into the butcher block. And that was it. There was no signs of forced entry, nothing of that kind. A woman just came in, came home with her husband on the evening of January 10th. The morning of January 11th, he goes to work, and then she's murdered. So now the police, you know, DNA is, I believe it's a thing, but there's no point in doing any kind of DNA test because that was her husband. Fingerprint, you can't dust for fingerprints because they live together in that home. Is there a motive? Did they have trouble in the marriage? According to friends and family, no. He worshipped the ground that she walked on. He loved her. Who had enough hatred in their heart to do this to her? Now, when the autopsy was done, Dr., I think his name was Fahmy Malek. I could be mispronouncing his name. He worked down in Little Rock. So he's the one that conducted the autopsy. He was the medical examiner. In the original report, he put the time of death at between 7 and 8 a.m. Wait a minute. No. That's not the time of death. Because that would indicate that somebody else waited for Gregory to go to work. He had to be at work at 7, so he would leave at 6:30. And as soon as he left, that's when they came in. But there was no evidence of any kind of break-in, no forced entry. So I'm not exactly sure who, I'm assuming it's Dr. Malak, but somebody takes whiteout, correction fluid, whatever you want to call it, takes out the 7 to 8 a.m. and he's like, no, I made a mistake. Her time of death is between 1 a.m. and 2 a.m. or 2 a.m. to 4 a.m., depending on what newspaper you want to believe. I believe when he testified, he said it was between 1 and 2 a.m. Let's just call it around 2 a.m. She was killed around 2 a.m. So that would indicate that, of course, Greg was at home with his wife at the time. He obviously murdered her. This case was only based on circumstantial evidence. So about a week after her murder, Greg was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. Now, he has $150,000 bail. He immediately bails out. He wasn't even in jail very long at all. But the next year, before the trial even starts, he gets arrested for a DUI, and they revoke his bond. I don't know if the bond revocation, if they put out a new bond and made it higher and he got out of jail, or he sat in jail during the duration of the trial. So the first trial, it ends with the jury convicting him of first-degree murder. He's sentenced to life in prison. Now, what I just told you about the correction fluid, that wasn't seen until after the first trial took place. So his defense, they're looking for anything that they can make a case on. Oh, look at this original report. They whited it out. It was whited out, and at first unknown was written, and then with his testimony, he stated she was murdered between 1 and 2 a.m. Now, when they had already got to her body at around 11 o'clock a.m. when her sister found her there, she was already cold to the touch, and rigor mortis had already set in. Now, when you die, rigor mortis starts within 2 hours. So she could have been killed at 8 a.m. and she would have already been stiff by the time her sister found her. So we can't use rigor mortis to determine exactly what time death occurred to a certain point. I mean, it's not an advanced science. You have a 2-hour window. So Greg is denying having anything to do with his wife. Several character witnesses did testify on his behalf, and they said Greg is a great guy. He had no known criminal record until the murder and the DUI that I could see. He loved and adored her. They were only married a year. I didn't read anything online about if anybody had said that there was trouble in the marriage. That I'm not sure of. But what I am sure of is the prosecution made a very, very, very costly mistake in terms of writing previously the time of death being from 7 to 8 a.m., meaning that he wasn't there, to 1 to 2 a.m., meaning he was there and he was in fact guilty. But also talking about Gregory Larimore's possible guilt is this. Him calling his mom when being told that his wife was seriously injured. That's a little weird. You're 27 years old. Why are you calling your mom? You should be asking what in God's name happened. Also, when the police interviewed him, I mean, now at this point, he's distraught. He could be acting. He could be faking it up. And, they said, listen, tell us what happened during the night. He said, well, okay, we got home from the wake. It was around 9:30, 10 o'clock. And, she went to bed. I fell asleep on the couch, watching TV or whatever. And then I woke up and I went to work. But his story changed. No, that's not what happened. That's not what happened. No, we got home and then I fell asleep on the couch, and then around 3 a.m. I woke up and I crawled into bed with my wife and I fell asleep, and then I woke up at 6 a.m. and then I left. Wait, no, I'm sorry. That's not what I meant. What I meant to say was I woke up at 3 a.m. and then I went to get something to eat out of the refrigerator, something to drink. And then I went into bed with my wife, and then I went back to the couch and went to sleep, I think. Well, gee, you should pretty much already know exactly what you did between, the time you and your wife get home and the time you left for work. Now you can blame a trauma occurring in your life where maybe you are starting to misremembering. Now, maybe like images and you're, as they say nowadays, misremembering. That's become a term in urban vernacular. But he's not 100% sure exactly if he woke up, went to sleep on the couch. Oh wait, no. I went to sleep with my wife. I didn't even sleep on the couch. No, I went to bed with my wife. We went to bed at around 11 a.m. That's what happened. Are you sure? Are you sure? Do you know what you're talking about? I mean, what's going on over here? So, police chief at the time of the Blytheville Police Department, Larry Christie, and Captain Ralph Hill, these two cops, they swear up and down between themselves that this guy is responsible for the murder. Because like I just told you before, there's no signs of a break-in. There is no motive for a robbery. I mean, and obviously, every time a woman is murdered, it's obviously it's a husband, it's a boyfriend, sometimes it's a jealous rival. So they just wanted to, quote unquote, get this bastard. They wanted this bastard because they just swear up and down. Maybe they nudged Dr. Malak to change the old, time of death. Because if you're writing 7 to 8 a.m. on the report, then they're not gonna say like, okay, well, he wasn't there at the time of the murder, so maybe somebody was in fact lying in wait and they waited for him to get out and go to work so they can go in there and murder her. But again, there was no sex assault that happened. So no robbery, no sex assault. What was the purpose? Who hated her enough to want her to butcher her like that? So it looks like now we have a bit of sloppy police work and a little bit of sloppy work by the medical examiner down in Little Rock. Okay. Now, like I stated before, character witnesses said that Greg was a good guy, loved his wife, worshiped the ground that she walked on. His boss stated that, when he came to work, he wasn't acting different, wasn't acting weird, nothing at all. It was just another day. Greg is vehemently denying his guilt. Now, like I said, the first trial ended in life in prison. The second trial, he was granted a new trial only because the doctor whited out the original death date and put 2 to 4 a.m. or it's a 1 to 2 a.m., depending on who we want to believe. So he gets a second trial and he's still found guilty. He's still found guilty. But instead of being sentenced to life in prison, Greg is sentenced to 25 years in prison. I honestly, I don't know why that was changed. That's a little bit odd. That's a little bit strange. So instead now, life in prison, he's getting 25 years. Now, I don't know how many years you do off of 25 years in Arkansas at that time. But as the recording of this video, it's been 34 years since this murder took place. And Greg is a free man. He got out of prison. Looks like he's remarried, moved out of state, and is just, I don't know, living his life. At first, when I read this story, because there wasn't a whole lot to it, because again, this happened years ago, and there's no DNA, there's no forensic files. Forensic files would not talk about this story because there's no, I don't want to use the word drama, but a lot of times true crime YouTubers will pick and choose a story that they want to do as long as there's like salacious details. And in this case, there's just not a lot of meat to the story. The absolute brutality of this crime in itself is what piqued my interest, because you know, the person to have the strength to do that to somebody. Now there were, you know, neighbors in the area during the could have been the first or second trial. One neighbor did say that around 11:30 p.m. There was some kind of a disturbance outside, and when she went to check, she noticed later on that Greg's truck was not in the driveway like it would have normally have been, I'm assuming, and that was around 11:30. Somebody else stated that they heard a loud bang, maybe a car backfiring around 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. They don't remember. And somebody also stated that, you know, that old famous one, the old black guy, they seen a black guy walking around. Yeah, you know, you're gonna have that sometimes. And then somebody had noticed that they seen a dude named Mark in the area at the time. Now Mark, his last name escapes me, but he was known in the area. He was a deaf mute. This guy, you know, they seen him somewhere around there at that time. Now these could be people that are just, you know, they're trying to grab at straws, or they're just trying to, you know, I don't know. It was a gunshot, or was it a car backfiring? He said it was between 2 and 4. How do you know, like, between 2 and 4 in the morning? I mean, how do you know what time it is or what time it was at all? They don't really know. It's just, you know, I don't know. This is the final resting place of Demetria June Sparks Larimore, wife of Greg Larimore. So I don't know if maybe the family believes that he did not commit this crime. I don't know, but they have the date of death, January 11th, 1990. And yeah, I don't know. A very, very tough case to, you know, I don't know. This was a horrible murder, and I don't know what kind of hate whoever the person it was that killed this young woman, but I have no idea. It blows my mind for somebody to have just a hate in their heart to commit this crime. And circumstantial evidence says that Greg murdered her, but I mean, was it somebody that targeted her and then waited for him to go to work? Did he accidentally leave it unlocked? Conventional wisdom says that Greg is responsible for her murder. The only problem is that the Dr. Malak, when he first put, you know, the death being between 7 and 8 a.m., I might have put between 6 and 7 earlier in the video. It was written between 7 and 8 a.m. That would mean that Greg was innocent. And then you're like, and then you get to, you know, Captain Hill and Chief Christie, who swear up and down that this quote unquote bastard murdered her. And so maybe they told the doctor, look, if you're gonna have the date of the time of death at that time, he was already at work, so he would have been found innocent. He'd be innocent. I don't know. I really don't know what to make about this case. All we know is that this was a horrible murder of a young woman whose only footprint in this world that I can find is simply her being murdered. That's it. Rest in peace to June. And he did his time in prison. I don't know what to make of it. I really don't know. When I first read the story, I'm saying he's guilty. Now, I would bet that he's guilty, but I don't know. I just don't know. Rest in peace. Terrible, terrible, terrible. Leave a comment below. Tell me what you think. Is he guilty? Is he not guilty? I find it weird that if he were guilty, you would have thought that with the murder weapon, he would have disposed of it, not put it back into the butcher block. Remember, the knife was put back. It was cleaned and put back. Whoever murdered her did it in a calm way, to where they took the time to wash up in the bathroom sink, cleaned the knife, put it in the block, and walked out. All right, guys, Lamont at large, signing out. I'll see you on the next video. Peace out.